Julian Cross knew all too well about the strange affliction I carried, the hunger that clawed at me like a shadow. I could never outrun the illness people would mock as nothing more than an excuse to crave touch. He had shared nearly everything with me, every intimacy a couple could explore, except the final step. And when the fire inside me grew unbearable, he turned his back with cruel indifference, leaving me to drown in my own storm, while he chased after the radiant moon he claimed as his true love. How laughable, he once said, as if such a disease could exist at all. It was fine to play with me when it suited him, but when disaster nearly struck, and I clung to him desperate, he spat venom and called me selfish, called me cruel. "Stay away from me, Sloane. Think of this as your punishment," he told me, his voice cold enough to slice me open. I should have broken then, but life has a way of pulling you forward. On a variety show that swept the nation, I stood beside a young newcomer whose smile was disarmingly sweet, whose energy melted into mine until our chemistry lit up the screen. Viewers cheered, fans praised us, and in that moment Julian's name flashed on my phone. His message was short, mocking in its casualness, as if he could still summon me at will. But what he did not know was that on the other side of the wall, in a quiet little room, the warmth of that same newcomer's body was pressed against mine. Kieran Holt was his name, and his presence had already woven into the fabric of my being. Our lips brushed, our breaths tangled, and for the first time in years, I did not feel like a broken woman begging for scraps. I no longer needed Julian. When he stood at the Academy Awards clutching his golden statuette, the hall exploded with applause, the media breathless with anticipation of the announcement they believed would reveal the love of his life. He stood dazzling under the spotlight, one hand clutching the trophy, the other shoved carelessly in his pocket. The world saw triumph, but I knew behind that polished smile he was sending me a message prepared long before. "Sloane, I just won an Oscar. My career is soaring. Now is not the right time to expose our relationship. Give me more time." I did not respond. On stage, a flicker of ice passed through his eyes when he saw the silence on his phone. His gaze searched the crowd, sweeping across rows of glittering faces, desperate to find me. But I was already gone. In the stillness of a black SUV parked outside, I was curled across Kieran's lap, his light brown hair falling over his forehead. His breath fevered as my fingers traced the softness of his lips. He trembled beneath my touch, his patience fraying with each passing second, until his voice broke hoarse and pleading. "Sloane, if you keep teasing me, I won't be able to stop." The sound of his swallow filled the air, heavy and raw, like the echo of his restraint unraveling. My illness was eating me alive, burning through every nerve, and all I could do was collapse against the rise and fall of his chest, clinging to the rhythm of his heartbeat to soothe the ache. When clarity returned, his shirt was already undone, beads of sweat sliding from the curve of his throat, tracing over his sculpted chest, before disappearing into the ridges of his abdomen. His breathing was ragged, his body alive with passion, and when he looked at me with eyes rimmed in red, I could not deny him. "Kieran." I whispered, my voice trembling with desperation. "There's no one here. It's just us." My plea was soft, almost a prayer. The gentle touches were no longer enough, they never were, and I needed more, needed to burn away the hunger that had ruled me for so long. Those words unleashed him. My gown, delicate and expensive, tore beneath the strength of his hands, the sound of fabric ripping, echoing like a secret broken open. He gripped my waist, drawing me closer, until there was no space left between us. Outside the tinted window, the moon spilled silver light into the car, wrapping around us as if it wanted to brand us in fire. It ignited something wild, something forbidden, until boundaries blurred and the night devoured everything but us. The flames raged on, consuming every line, every wall, burning long past the moment the ceremony ended. When Julian Cross finally found me, I was no longer in the same gown I had worn to the ceremony. My dress had been replaced. My expression calm, but the ice in his eyes could have frozen the air around us. His jaw tightened, his fist clenched, and the chill that rolled off him made even the crowd hesitate. A fellow actress, one I had once shared the screen with, leaned closer and asked with a curious smile, "Sloane, the ceremony just ended. Why did you change? Was it because of Julian?" Our relationship had never been public yet within the industry. Everyone whispered, everyone assumed. They believed I was hopelessly devoted to him, that I trailed behind him like a shadow, desperate to prove myself worthy. Perhaps it looked that way. I never missed one of his films, never arrived unprepared when we met. I would stand in the rain outside his set, waiting drenched yet patient, thinking my devotion was love. Like cotton candy, I was soft but impossible to peel away. And yet, before anyone could feed the flames further, Kieran Holt's voice cut through the silence, steady and sharp. She only changed because her gown got stained earlier. That's all. The words slipped from his lips so easily, but they struck me harder than they should have. The memory of his touch in the dark car flickered in my chest, and my heart stumbled in its rhythm. My body, exhausted from the weight of the night, faltered. Kieran stepped forward instinctively to steady me, but another hand reached me first. Julian. His grip was firm, almost possessive, his posture unmistakably intimate. His voice low and edged with something darker brushed against my ear. Has that strange illness of yours returned? It has been over a month, hasn't it? He had never believed my affliction was real. Never once. But now, for the first time, he acknowledged it, twisting the truth into something cruel. Something that made me feel exposed before all those watching eyes. I smiled politely and slipped free from his touch, my voice smooth, but my body pulling back 2 careful steps. I wasn't there earlier, so congratulations on your Oscar, Julian. My smile was polite, practiced, but the distance I created was deliberate, undeniable. Everyone around us could see it. For the first time, I wasn't reaching for him, wasn't clinging to the illusion. The shock rippled through the room. People stared, whispering, unable to believe what they were seeing. Julian, too, seemed frozen. His hands suspended awkwardly in the air, as though he no longer knew whether to reach or to retreat. One of my closest colleagues hurried to my side, her voice dropping to a frantic whisper. "Sloane, do you even know what you're doing? You've chased him for so long, loved him without being loved in return, and now this is your chance. Don't throw it away." But I only brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, my eyes distant. "You're mistaken. Julian and I aren't close." The words left her stunned, but no one was more shaken than Julian himself. Before he could speak, before the silence turned into a scene, I turned to Kieran, catching his gaze with quiet certainty. "Our first scene is tomorrow morning. Let's head back and go over the script." Kieran nodded without hesitation. Together, we walked to the waiting SUV, one step after another, leaving Julian behind in a room full of cameras and whispers. The door closed, the world outside fading into silence, and my knees nearly gave way beneath me. Kieran caught me instantly. His hand warm, steady, a presence I could lean into without shame. In the back seat, the shredded remnants of my evening gown still lay scattered like the proof of a secret only we knew. The engine rumbled, pulling us away from the glittering chaos, leaving Julian and his perfect illusion behind. The quiet was broken only when my phone vibrated. His name glowed on the screen. The message was painfully familiar, filled with the same condescension he had wrapped me in for years. "Sloane, I know you're just afraid of people finding out about us. That's why you acted that way. You were very sensible tonight. I bought you a new bag. I'll bring it over later." I stared at the words, hollow inside. This was the first message from him in a month, the first attempt at contact since the night I had begged him for help, the night my body had betrayed me with a pain so sharp I could hardly breathe. That night I had reached for him, asking him to come to the dressing room for just a moment to hold me together until the storm passed. His reply had been cold, a blade across the heart. "Not free. Stop being selfish. Don't cling to me anymore." The craving burned through me, melting my strength, yet I still had scenes left to shoot. I couldn't simply walk away. Julian Cross was filming on the soundstage next door, so I sent him a desperate message begging him to stop by the dressing room just for a moment, just to calm the storm tearing me apart. His reply came fast, cold, busy. Then a string of scathing words. "There's no such thing as your so-called skin hunger. Normally, I can put up with your games, but after today's near accident, you still cling to me without a care for anyone else's feelings. How cruel can you be? Be good, Sloane. Don't see me for a while. Consider it punishment." I tried to explain, my fingers trembling as I typed reply after reply. Every message fell into silence, then blocked. The air in my lungs turned heavy, choking. I couldn't even catch my breath. And then the headlines broke. Vivienne Hale trapped in a luxury high-rise elevator. Julian Cross rushes to her side. He comforts her from outside for 2 endless hours. The media devoured it. Old rumors between them resurfaced overnight. Fans of the couple rejoiced. Hashtags exploded across every platform. Elevator love story. 2 hours of devotion. Vivienne and Julian. Their reunion was a trending fairy tale. And me, I was in a cramped dressing room, doubled over, nearly fainting from the pain, clawing at my body. While she was rescued, I was left to collapse. When I stumbled out at last, dizzy and gasping for air, I collided with someone. A boyish face, clear eyes, Kieran Holt. A newcomer, a nobody yet still searching for a chance. A rookie, huh? My lips twisted bitterly. Come with me, I can give you roles. Money too. That was the first time I met Kieran. But my body betrayed me, the hunger too fierce, too merciless. Simple touches weren't enough anymore. While the internet drowned in applause for Vivienne's perfect tragedy, I picked up my phone and called Julian's closest friend. My voice was steady when I delivered the message. Tell him it's over. From this moment, we're done. That night in the quiet shadows, Kieran and I crossed the line for the first time. Strangely, it felt nothing like my desperate dependence on Julian. With Kieran, I felt myself sinking deeper, addicted to his presence. We had barely met, and yet I couldn't resist reaching for him, needing more. He gently wiped away my makeup, cradled me in his arms, but still it wasn't enough. The ache gnawed through me. Realizing my struggle, Kieran caught my wrist, pinned me softly against the sofa. His breath brushed my ear. Looks like the only way to help is the way we just did. The memory of our stolen moment in the SUV flared back, heat rushing through my veins. My fingers trembled as they traced the curve of his chest, hot beneath my touch. And then the shrill ring of my phone shattered everything. Julian. I hadn't answered his texts, and now he was calling again and again. I pressed accept, at last, my tone cool. Detached. Sloane, why didn't you tell me you were moving? Do you realize I almost exposed us today? I pressed my temple, voice flat. Julian, are we ex-lovers or just an affair you never wanted to admit? Silence. Then a sharp laugh. You really don't get it, do you? Vivienne nearly lost her life today, and you're here playing jealous games. You're 26, not 16. I've spoiled you too much. Maybe it's time I taught you a lesson. I laughed too, but not because it was funny. Because something in me had finally broken free. I stared at the glowing red button on my screen. No anger, no pain, only release. And what punishment this time, I whispered. 2 months of silence, 3 Julian. This time the punishment is mine to give. My thumb hovered, then pressed down. Not 1 month, not 2, forever, don't ever call me again. The line went dead. Peace settled in its place. After all, he'd already received the message I left with his friend. The night he abandoned me to run to Vivienne was the night we ended. Kieran didn't give me the chance to think. He moved swiftly, climbing over me, pressing light burning kisses along my neck. Don't think about him anymore, Sloane. If a man truly loves you, how could he stand not hearing from you? I can't go a single minute without wanting to be at your side. If I could turn into a piece of gum stuck to you forever, I'd gladly do it. His words were both sweet and daring, and I couldn't help but laugh. Teasing, tempting, irresistible, who wouldn't fall for a younger man like Kieran? When filming for my new movie wrapped, my manager immediately signed me up for a long-term travel reality show. The thought of being away from Kieran for weeks unsettled me, so I made sure he was added to the guest list. Lately, my skin hunger had been surging back with full force. I couldn't imagine surviving it without him nearby. The show featured 6 guests in total, me, Kieran, 2 men, and 2 women. On the very first day, the producers blindfolded us and handed us darts to choose our travel destination. After a round of rock, paper, scissors, Kieran won. The others teased him, shouting suggestions. New York, Miami, Seattle. Kieran turned toward me with a grin. Where do you want to go, Teacher Sloane? The group erupted into laughter at his playful deference. Adorable, he thinks the dart will just fly where she says. One of the female guests teased Sloane. Teach your boy some reality, I pointed confidently toward the northwest. Aim for the northwest. Kieran laughed, tied on the blindfold, and threw. The dart landed squarely on Portland. Everyone gasped. The live stream chat exploded with comments. No way he really hit it. Not just tall, handsome, and photogenic, but skilled too. Unreal. That's Kieran Holt, the rookie who debuted as the second male lead opposite Sloane Mercer. The movie hasn't even aired yet, but their chemistry's already insane. Directors give them more screen time, fans went wild, hashtags skyrocketed, had Kieran Holt Sloane Mercer dart fate. Producers quickly pulled us aside, proposing more joint screen time, even promising higher pay if we leaned into the chemistry. We agreed. It was perfect publicity for my film, and a perfect excuse to stay glued to Kieran. Our first destination was Lake Tahoe. Everywhere we went, Kieran shadowed me like my own reflection. Viewers swooned, shipping us relentlessly. They're more couple-like than real couples. One guest laughed. Another added with a smirk. Last night, when I dropped my chopsticks, I saw you two holding hands under the table. Don't tell me that's just friendship. I met their stares with a calm, easy smile. We're married. The set froze in stunned silence. Yes. Right before joining the show, Kieran and I had gone to the courthouse and registered our marriage. I'd planned to wait until after my new film premiered before going public. After all, I was an award-winning A-lister, while he was just a fresh face. Revealing too soon would only invite criticism that he was riding my coattails. But the truth, I didn't care if Kieran's career soared or stalled. All I needed was someone who could soothe my hunger, someone who met every one of my needs, and that he did better than anyone ever could. And Kieran, he wasn't just anyone. From his height, his looks down to his very nature, he was exactly what I wanted. The two female guests screamed with glee after my casual confession, promising to keep the secret. I was still savoring the warm afterglow when the hunger hit me again, sharp, relentless. Kieran was busy teaching the two male guests how to throw darts. I quickly texted him. Minutes later, he slipped away from the cameras and found me. We'd scouted beforehand. The only places without cameras were the storage room and the restrooms. Too risky to use the bedrooms or bathrooms, so we chose the storage room. The moment I wrapped myself around him, touching his body, the pain dulled. "Sloane, this charging method doesn't seem very effective, does it?" He teased, voice low against my ear. I looked up at him confused, but he only tilted my chin and kissed me deeply. My heartbeat thundered, not only because of him, but because footsteps echoed outside. One push on that door, and they'd see us tangled together in the cramped space. Just as my body softened under his kiss, my phone rang. On the screen, Julian Cross. I moved to decline, but Kieran was faster. He answered. Julian's voice crackled through the speaker, full of accusation. "Sloane, what's going on with the hot search? At the Golden Globes, you slipped out early with that kid. And now he shows up on your reality show. I hear his new role only happened because you insisted. Tell me you're not actually serious about him. He's just a rookie. Play with him if you want, but don't be foolish enough to think this ends well. I'm not young anymore. I want to settle down, build a family." His words felt like filth crawling into my ears. Before I could answer, Kieran bent down and bit lightly at my neck. A soft moan escaped me, betraying my body, and Kieran smirked, holding the phone closer to the sound. "Funny, you're older and still unmarried. Unlike me, I'm young and already registered as Sloane's husband." "Right, Julian." And then a chilling voice thundered from just outside the door. "Sloane, where are you and with who?" Julian Cross had come. I snapped the call shut, not from fear of him, but from dread. The cameras might catch too much. The beeping end tone only fueled his rage. He slammed a fist against the storage room door, making me flinch, but he didn't force it open. He stormed away. When the hunger finally subsided, Kieran and I slipped out separately. I nodded coolly at Julian, no trace of the old warmth in my eyes. His face darkened gaze, burning holes into Kieran. That afternoon, we boarded the bus to Lake Tahoe. Julian deliberately chose a seat beside Kieran. I didn't know what they said, but when we arrived, Julian's expression was darker than ever. During free time, Kieran strolled up to me, a sly smile on his lips. "He told me to stay away from you, didn't he?" I asked, still snapping photos of the lake. "Exactly, but I told him straight. What right does he have to warn me? We're not just co-stars, we're husband and wife." His face turned pale instantly. Kieran chuckled, eyes blazing. "He's pathetic. When he had you, he didn't value you. Now that he's lost you, he can't let go. Mark my words, he'll die a lonely man." I glanced across the lake. Julian was laughing stiffly with other guests, but his eyes never strayed far from me and Kieran. "Stay away from him," I warned softly. "Julian has deep connections in the industry. You're new, don't let him cause trouble for you." I knew Julian Cross too well after 3 years at his side. His pride was towering, and anyone who crossed him, he destroyed. Once a promising actor had joked about him on a variety show. Julian crushed his career until the poor guy had no choice but to leave Hollywood altogether. But Kieran Holt only laughed, his eyes sparkling. "Don't worry, Sloane, he can't touch me," I sighed inwardly. Youth so fearless, so beautiful. As we admired the stunning scenery, a guest suggested group photos. Everyone took turns, but the results were mostly awkward angles and poor lighting until it was Julian's turn. His shots were the worst of all, clumsy and unflattering. Then Kieran lifted his phone, grinning confidently. He pulled up his album and showed everyone. Each photo, whether of landscapes or people, was perfectly composed, glowing with life. The program's camera zoomed in, and live stream viewers erupted. Wait, wasn't Kieran studying photography before acting? If my boyfriend took pictures like this, I wouldn't care how many mistakes he made. I'd never let him go. Look, he took the most photos of Sloane, and every single one looks like a studio masterpiece. You can literally see the love through his lens. Look at Sloane's eyes when she looks at him. That glow. She used to look at Julian like that, but not anymore. Not everyone agreed, of course. Nonsense, it's just media hype. Sloane never really loved Julian. Good. Julian doesn't deserve someone like her anyway. He belongs with Vivienne Hale, that's fate. The chatter only drew more attention to Kieran, while Julian was quietly ignored. He'd been voted the worst photographer. His face soured, but nobody cared. At the hotel, while the men helped the women with luggage, Julian appeared beside me, making a show of wanting to carry my bag. I stepped back sharply. I couldn't risk anyone misunderstanding. When he still refused to leave, I dropped my suitcase at his feet with a cold flick of my wrist. He called after me, voice edged with mockery. "Sloane Mercer, don't you think your reaction's a little too much? That boy fits into your act well." "Of course he does. You handed him a role in a spotlight. It's only natural he repays you by playing the perfect boyfriend to get under my skin." I turned, smiled icily. "Right. Because you think everyone's as calculating as you are, Julian. Newsflash, not everyone is." I walked away, refusing to give him more of my energy. But he wouldn't let go. "You really think I don't see through this? Remember when you said if I didn't show up in 10 minutes, you'd leave with someone else? I didn't see you for a week, and you still waited so much that you ended up in the hospital. Stop lying to yourself, Sloane. You love me more than you admit. That's why I'm here. That's why I came all this way. I've already lowered myself this much. Don't you think it's time you gave us both a way out?" His words no longer made me angry. Anger would have meant I still cared. Instead, I felt the weight of disappointment crashing down, not in him, but in myself for not seeing through Julian Cross sooner. He had always known exactly what he was doing, but never once had he chosen kindness. Instead, he fed off my love, bending it, twisting it, wielding it like a weapon to control me. What a pathetic excuse for love. A laugh escaped me, sharp and cold. "Julian, is that tumor on your neck real? Or is there just something wrong with your brain? If your head is full of water, maybe drain it before you try speaking. I already told you we're done. I don't love you anymore. And Kieran and I, we're real." With that, I yanked my suitcase from his grip and turned on my heel. The tension between us was so suffocating that even the production crew didn't dare film our exchange. Only when Kieran appeared at my side, effortlessly taking the bag from my hands, did the cameras pivot toward him, capturing the quiet certainty of his gesture. In the days that followed, I did everything I could to avoid sharing a frame with Julian. He kept his distance too, at least physically, but his eyes never left me. Always watching, always carrying that silent challenge, as if daring me to keep up what he called an act. Some of the guests noticed. "Sloane, did you two fight? You look like there's some serious tension there. Funny though, the media always said you chased Julian, but now it feels like he's the one chasing you. Could it be you liked him once, and he never appreciated it? And now that you're married, he regrets it?" I shook my head and laughed softly without humor. The media exaggerates everything. I never dated Julian. I never loved him. And I certainly don't now. The past is dead, and I'm not digging it back up. Julian never acknowledged our relationship publicly, so why should I? There was no reason to validate it, no reason to give him that power anymore. Looking back, I wished I could return to the girl I had been and slap her awake. The world is full of men. Why had I shackled myself to someone like him? For him, I'd done things I swore I'd never do. The press called me clingy. His fans mocked me, called me insane. And I too, blinded by hope, never denied it. I dreamed foolishly that one day Julian would stand before the world and finally claim me. Yes, she's mine. Sloane is my girlfriend. But that was nothing more than a fantasy I had built to survive his indifference. The third stop of the show was in Triad City. On the way, we were joined by a new guest, Vivienne Hale. And of course, the first to greet her was Julian, striding forward with that effortless charm, taking her luggage as if it were second nature. The other guests were polite, offering their hellos, but none matched the warmth he showed her. Kieran leaned close, his voice pitched low enough for me, yet somehow loud enough for both Vivienne and Julian to hear. "She's the actress Julian was seeing before his divorce, isn't she?" I glanced at him startled, but he knew exactly what he was doing. Julian's face tightened, his smile faltering for a second. Vivienne's lips pressed into a thin line. She walked straight toward us, stopping right in front of Kieran, her eyes flicking over him before settling on me. Her voice was sweet, but the venom underneath was unmistakable. "Julian and I are childhood sweethearts, best friends, and yes, once upon a time we were in love. After my divorce, he helped me find a lawyer. It was nothing more than what any old friend would do." Her eyes hardened as she tilted her chin toward Kieran. "But if you're going to act, young man, act well. Don't let ambition blind you to the consequences. You're just a rookie. A handful of connections won't be enough to secure your place in this industry." Then she turned to me, her smile dripping with arrogance. "What's the plan, Sloane? To use him to make Julian jealous, to push him into regretting losing you? Clever, I'll give you that. But I'm the light he could never hold on to. Now that I'm divorced, this is his chance. He lost me once, but he won't lose me again. Which means you'll never win. You should give up before you embarrass yourself further." Vivienne's head lifted higher, her grin victorious. I studied her for a long moment before letting out a low, bitter laugh. "So that's it? Divorce your boyfriend when his career crashes, marry a millionaire, then divorce again once he goes bankrupt, only to come crawling back when your ex finally makes it big. That's your game, Vivienne. Well, congratulations. I could never play at your level. You're kind of shameless. I don't compete with that." Vivienne Hale's confident smile froze instantly. Kieran Holt couldn't hold back his laughter. He even lifted a thumb in mock approval right in her face. The humiliation made her stomp her heel against the ground before spinning on her heel and storming straight toward Julian Cross, clinging to him as if staking a claim. If it weren't for Julian inviting me, I wouldn't have bothered with this show. I'd rather be home watching movies. "But thank you, Julian, for asking me here," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. She wanted it clear that Julian was the reason she had come. The declaration was almost theatrical, and I couldn't stop the bitter amusement that bubbled up inside me. Kieran glanced at me, his smile softening into something gentler. Baby Julian really is blind. To choose someone like her and yet miss out on a treasure like you, that's his loss, not yours. The way he said it, the shift from calling me Sloane to tender names like baby, it caught me off guard. It felt as though the roles had reversed, as if I were younger, and he were the one protecting me. Through the rest of the trip, Julian and Vivienne were inseparable, sticking together like glue. Their shippers online went wild. Finally, they're in the same frame again. Poor Sloane, she must have thought she'd get some alone time with Julian, but Vivienne showed up and stole the spotlight. Who would believe they're not dating? They're perfect together, but not every comment sided with them. Are Vivienne's fans blind? Can't they see Julian keeps looking at Sloane, but she avoids him every single time? Exactly, Sloane clearly doesn't want him, but she's close with Kieran. They disappear off camera together so often. Don't tell me they're not secretly dating. Have you noticed Kieran doesn't even call her sister anymore? The way he looks at her says it all. Every time they come back from being alone, her face is flushed, her lips swollen, and his eyes are practically glowing. The tension between them is insane. The whispers, both online and off, only fueled the fire. Vivienne's arrival turned the show into a battlefield. Julian catered to her every whim, casting me aside without a thought. Meanwhile, Kieran made it his mission to look after me. It was as if the two men were silently competing, each proving himself in very different ways. The tension peaked when we arrived in Moncton. The hotel had mismanaged the reservations, leaving us short by one room. Without hesitation, Julian offered his keycard to Vivienne. "She's sensitive, she can't possibly sleep in a tent. The air out there is too dry. Take my room." Vivienne feigned reluctance, tilting her head with just the right touch of coyness. "That's too much, Julian, but if it's not too much trouble, I'd like to be in the room next to yours." The air grew thick, awkward. The guests exchanged glances, unsure of how to respond. And then Kieran's laughter broke through, light and disarming. "We're in Moncton," he said, grinning. "Why stay cooped up in a hotel? Isn't this the perfect chance for camping? Imagine sleeping under the stars at Crescent Valley. What do you say, Sloane?" He arched a brow at me. I smiled back and nodded. "Let's do it." The thought of escaping into the open night with him, free from all the suffocating politics, was too tempting to resist. The other guests quickly jumped on board. "I want to go, me too, let's camp." But the director immediately raised a hand. "Hold on, the budget doesn't cover camping trips, and booking tents at this hour would be impossible." Julian smirked, as if savoring the moment I would have to beg him for help. His eyes gleamed with expectation, waiting for me to crumble. But Kieran only shook his head calmly. "It's fine. I have a friend who specializes in outdoor experiences. I already arranged for tents before we got here." The entire group erupted in cheers. Relief and excitement buzzed through the air, and then with the same calm smile he added, "Oh, but I only booked for 6. The production said there would only be 6 guests. Looks like we've got 2 extras." Unfortunately, that means no tents for Julian and Vivienne. Julian's face darkened instantly, his composure cracking. Vivienne, however, smiled brightly, pretending to be unbothered. "No worries, everyone else can go. Julian and I will stay at the hotel." Her tone was light, but her words dripped with implication, fueling endless speculation. When we arrived at the campsite, my tent was set right beside Kieran Holt's. After a long day of activities, everyone was exhausted and went to bed early. I was about to drift off when a message buzzed on my phone. "Open your tent." I unzipped the flap, expecting Kieran's face. Instead, Julian Cross stood there smirking. How perfect, he drawled, his voice dripping with irony. "I don't even have to knock and you open the door. We really are connected, aren't we?" Before I could reply, Kieran appeared behind him. Without hesitation, I grabbed Kieran by the wrist, pulled him inside, and zipped the tent shut right in Julian's face. His mocking voice carried through the thin fabric. "Sloane Mercer, don't overact. Everyone can see right through you." Kieran and I exchanged a look, then deliberately ignored him, settling into silence until the night faded into dawn. When the first rays of morning light spilled over the camp, Kieran slipped out quietly. That's when I realized Julian was still there, sitting outside my tent, as if he'd been waiting the whole night. His eyes locked on Kieran's retreating back, then shifted to me, dark and cold. "So it's true," he said in a low, cutting voice. "You really spent the night with him?" I met his stare without flinching. "Are you insane?" I muttered flatly before zipping the tent closed again. By 8 o'clock, the group gathered as planned. Julian arrived with Vivienne Hale by his side. Her gaze toward me was sharp with resentment, but I refused to acknowledge it. Instead, I sat next to Kieran on the bus, leaving Julian to sit with Vivienne. She tried to chat with him, but he only answered curtly, his mind clearly elsewhere. The livestream audience noticed right away. "What's going on yesterday?" Julian and Vivienne looked so happy, and now he's acting like he owes her money. "Yeah, it's weird." His eyes keep drifting toward Sloane. Didn't he say he didn't care about her anymore? Maybe Sloane upset him somehow. That makes no sense. First you all said she was chasing him. Now he's the one chasing, and suddenly she's the bad guy. Be serious. If anyone's clinging, it's Vivienne. Or maybe Kieran, he's always with her. And then came the bombshell that lit up the chat. Turns out Kieran Holt wasn't just a rookie actor. He was the son of the legendary director Donovan Holt. Compared to Julian, Kieran's background was even more formidable. Our next stop was a grand estate, where we were scheduled to shoot a themed photo shoot for the show. While the stylist prepared the guests, I felt a familiar wave of discomfort rising inside me. My skin condition was flaring up again. Desperate, I texted Kieran, but his phone was left behind on the table he'd gone to change. With no other choice, I excused myself with a vague claim of stomach pain and slipped away to the restroom. My body felt like it was betraying me, every nerve raw with pain. I pressed my palms against the sink, trying to steady my breath, when there was a sudden knock at the door. Relief surged through me. I thought it was Kieran. But when I opened it, Julian stood there. He said nothing at first, simply tried to push his way in. Instinctively, I shoved him back, slamming the door against his chest. His lips curled into a self-satisfied smirk. "Perfect timing," he murmured smugly. "Your condition flares up and you hide away here, almost as if you're waiting for me. Who else could help you, Sloane? Only me." He chuckled, the sound low and taunting. "Honestly, it's a blessing you have this illness. Otherwise, who knows how long you'd keep up this cold war with me." His words stunned me into silence, not because they were true, but because of how cruelly he twisted my suffering into his victory. The condition that had haunted me for years, the pain I endured in secret, he saw it as nothing more than leverage, a tool to keep me tethered to him. Revulsion rose in my throat. Looking into his triumphant eyes, I saw nothing but arrogance, a man who believed my agony was his proof of power. To him, my vulnerability was a gift that validated his place in a relationship that had already died long ago. I took a deliberate step back, every muscle trembling with controlled fury. Julian Cross, who do you think you are, a savior? Some man I can't live without. My voice was cold, sharp enough to cut. I'd rather endure this pain alone than depend on someone as selfish and conceited as you. For a split second, surprise flickered across his face, but it vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by that same infuriating smirk. Julian's lips curved into that infuriating smirk again, his eyes glinting with provocation. You're only lying to yourself, Sloane. If not for me, why else would you be here? Who else could you possibly rely on? His words pierced through me, leaving me momentarily frozen. He treated my illness, the very thing that had tormented me for years, as though it were a gift, something that bound me to him like a chain. The arrogance in his voice churned my stomach, filling me with disgust and anger. I wanted to scream at him that the world did not revolve around Julian Cross, that there were countless men in this world, and he was not the sun I had to orbit. Before I could lash out, a firm voice cut through the tension. Kieran Holt appeared, his eyes cold and steady on Julian. Without waiting for a reaction, he reached for my hand and pulled me away. I let him guide me, our steps quick and determined, until we were far from prying eyes, tucked away beside a parked van. In that pocket of silence, the weight I had been carrying broke. I clung to him, pressing trembling kisses against his shoulder, his chest seeking comfort in the warmth of his body. He held me without question, without condition, grounding me in a way Julian never could. Neither of us noticed Vivienne Hale, watching from a distance, her sharp eyes narrowing as she caught every stolen moment. When we returned, the others were already assembled, ready for the photo shoot. Julian sat rigid in his chair, makeup hiding nothing of the storm brewing beneath his expression. The live stream audience noticed instantly. Why does Julian keep staring at Sloane like that? Isn't he supposed to be paired with Vivienne? This feels off. He's jealous, look at him. That glare every time Kieran sits next to her, he's definitely jealous. I pretended not to notice, slipping into my seat beside Kieran. The air around us buzzed with speculation, but we forced smiles, playing along as if nothing had happened. Sloane, a fellow guest, asked teasingly, "Where did you and Kieran run off to just now?" Before I could speak, Kieran chuckled lightly. She thought she left something in the van. I went with her to look. Oh, I see. The guest grinned, buying the excuse. Vivienne leaned close to me, her lips brushing my ear as she whispered, "Looking for something or just looking for a thrill?" Her tone was dripping with venom, her smile carefully hidden from the cameras. Later, when the shoot wrapped and we prepared to leave for the final leg of the journey, Julian cornered me once more. His voice was sharp, direct, almost desperate. "Sloane, don't tell me this thing with Kieran is any different from what we had. You only ever let me close when your illness flared up to dull the pain. That's all this is with him too, isn't it?" His gaze pinned me in place, arrogant and sure of itself. Memories slammed into me. The times he had kept his distance, choosing Vivienne over me even as I suffered. The coldness I had endured still etched into my bones. I opened my mouth, but he cut me off again. "Of course that's what it is. You think a boy like him will stick around? You're not young anymore, Sloane. A woman's youth doesn't last forever. Do you really believe you can hold the heart of someone younger than you? Fine, you've won for now. You've made me jealous. You've made me restless every time I see you with him. But enough games. Let's go back to how things were. I'll pay him off. He'll disappear quietly." I stared at him, hardly believing the audacity of the man before me. My voice was steady when I answered. "Keep your money, Julian, and keep your mouth shut. Don't you dare let anyone know we were ever together." I inhaled sharply, the finality of my words cutting through the heavy air. "We are over. Stop clinging to me. If you feel even a shred of remorse, erase me from your story." He tried to grab my hand, but I shook him off. Just as he stepped forward again, Kieran appeared, planting himself firmly between us. His voice was calm but commanding. "You heard her. She's my wife. Don't come near her again." With that, he took my hand and guided me away, his strength steady against the chaos Julian left behind. At dinner, Julian barely touched his food, his face clouded and grim. Vivienne, by contrast, radiated energy, her smile never faltering as she played to the cameras. Everyone noticed the imbalance, but no one dared to comment. That night, the cast retired early to prepare for the final day of filming. Once the cameras were off, Kieran slipped into my room, his arms wrapping around me the moment the door shut. He buried his head against me, voice muffled with boyish stubbornness. "Sloane, you kissed my left cheek 3 days in a row. Tonight, kiss the right one. 5 minutes. Otherwise, my OCD will flare up." I laughed softly, holding him close. "You're ridiculous." My fingers brushed through his hair, my phone forgotten on the nightstand. "By the way, I teased you're trending. People online are saying you're the son of Donovan Holt." He stiffened for a moment, scratching his head awkwardly. "And if it's true, would that make you look at me differently?" I blinked at him, touched by the hesitation in his voice. "Even if you were his son, I could still take care of you. That's not going to change how I feel." His eyes softened, relief flickering across his face. "Then I'm the lucky one." I smiled, my chest tightening with warmth. Who would have thought that the boy I had pulled close in desperation, the one who had first helped me through my darkest moment, would turn out to have a background even more dazzling than Julian Cross. And yet none of that mattered. He wasn't defined by his father's name. He was Kieran Holt, the man who chose to stand by me when I needed him most. Donovan Holt had mentioned in countless interviews that he had a brilliant son, a gifted screenwriter behind several award-winning films. That son was none other than Kieran Holt. He leaned close to me, lips curling into a teasing smile. "Sloane, just for tonight, let me take the lead. Don't call me your kid brother anymore, just call me yours." His tall frame loomed over mine, eyes dancing with playful mischief. I was just about to push him away when the sharp beep of the door lock broke the moment. The door swung open. Vivienne Hale stood frozen in the doorway, several other guests crowding behind her. Her eyes widened as she took in the sight of Kieran hovering over me, our bodies far too close. "Oh my God, Sloane, Kieran, what on earth are you two doing?" Her shriek cut through the air like a blade. Kieran and I scrambled to sit up, but it was too late. Vivienne already had her phone raised, capturing everything in crisp detail. Satisfaction flickered across her face as she panned the camera deliberately. "What a coincidence," she said sweetly. "The director suggested I check in for some behind-the-scenes footage. Tonight is the very first time the program is streaming private life inside the hotel." Her gaze slid to her screen lips, twisting into a wicked grin. "But this is much more entertaining than I imagined." The live stream chat exploded instantly. "Are they insane? They couldn't even wait until tomorrow. I can't believe Sloane Mercer has no self-control. This is humiliating." Finally, she's exposed. Everyone switch over to support Vivienne Hale. She's the one who deserves the spotlight. I remembered perfectly well that Vivienne was the one who had proposed the idea of streaming in the hotel. Julian Cross was supposed to have informed us all, but judging by his silence, it was clear he hadn't said a word. He wanted this chaos. Some viewers pushed back. "Stop blaming Sloane. Can't you see Julian set this up? This is disgusting. He clearly kept it from them on purpose. Actually, maybe they're really together. The chemistry has been obvious since day one." One of the female guests tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Sloane, didn't Julian tell you?" We were all informed there'd be a live stream back at the hotel. I turned toward the doorway. There stood Julian, leaning casually against the frame, shrugging with a smug grin. "Sorry, guess I forgot." "Forgot, no." He had engineered this moment, every second of it. The staff whispered among themselves, speculation spreading like wildfire. What exactly is going on between Sloane and Kieran? Could it really be a relationship? But they've only known each other for months. Don't tell me it's some kind of sugar arrangement. I never thought Sloane would stoop so low. Vivienne stepped forward, her voice sickly sweet. "Sloane, even as a top star, you shouldn't be taking advantage of a rookie like this." Poor Kieran. If only he had met me first, he wouldn't be suffering like this. Her words dripped with accusation, insinuating I had coerced him into staying by my side, with promises of fame and power. Then she leaned closer, her whisper hot against my ear. "Don't blame me, darling. Julian was the one who forgot to tell you about the live stream." The fury that burned inside me was almost uncontrollable. How dare she? Julian approached, then pulling me aside. His tone filled with false sympathy. "I warned you not to overplay your hand. Now look at you. If your career crumbles, every film, every brand, every show you've worked with will demand compensation. But don't worry, I'll take care of everything. When this program ends, we'll get married. I'll give you a safe exit." I met his gaze, my voice like ice. "You really think I need your help? You want to ruin me just to make me crawl back to you?" "Sorry, Julian, you'll be disappointed." Turning my back on him, I strode toward the camera where Vivienne was still streaming. At that very moment, Kieran stepped up beside me. His expression was calm, but his eyes burned with resolve. He reached out, took the phone from Vivienne's hand, and looked straight into the lens. "I owe everyone an apology for what you just saw," he said steadily. "But this isn't what you think. Sloane and we've been married for some time now." And here he pulled a folded document from his pocket, holding it up for the world to see, is our marriage certificate. Kieran unlocked his phone, pulling up an album. He held 2 small crimson booklets up to the camera, marriage certificates, real and undeniable. My hand slipped into his, and I gave a small nod with a faint smile. "Yes," I said. "We were planning to wait until our film premiered before making it public. But it seems the truth can't be hidden any longer." "Impossible, that has to be photoshopped." Vivienne Hale blurted, her face twisting with disbelief. But before she could spin another lie, 2 of the female guests chimed in. "No, it's real. On the very first day of shooting, Sloane told us herself she and Kieran are married." Silence engulfed the room. Vivienne and Julian stood frozen, speechless. Meanwhile, the live stream chat went berserk. "I thought her career was done for, but turns out it's a marriage announcement. Oh my god. They're actually husband and wife. I shipped them as a couple, but they're real. They barely knew each other. How could they marry so fast? They must have something that makes them irresistible to each other." Fans immediately began revisiting old clips from the show. Moments once overlooked now looked like evidence. Kieran pouring water for me, massaging my shoulders when I was tired, shielding my face from the sun when I dozed off in the van. It was all there, plain as day. This is the kind of love that makes you believe again. Ugh, I'm jealous. Where do you even find a man like Kieran Holt? The air shifted instantly. All eyes turned toward Julian Cross and Vivienne Hale, now marked as the architects of a failed trap. 2 female guests whispered to each other. They tried to set her up. Absolutely vile. I'm steering clear of them from now on. I won't work on any film tied to either of them. No one had to say it aloud, the truth was obvious. Julian and Vivienne had dug their own graves. By morning, the entertainment industry's trending charts had completely flipped. Sloane Mercer and Kieran Holt married for real. Julian Cross failed to warn about livestream. Vivienne Hale and Julian Cross exposed for sabotage. The fallout was swift. During the final day of filming, Julian and Vivienne were nowhere to be seen, pulled back by their management teams to contain the PR disaster. But their attempt to smear me didn't stop there. Desperate, they tried spinning new stories only to be crushed by the truth. Kieran moved quickly, working with media outlets to leak receipts. Vivienne had been spotted with Julian multiple times at hotels outpalled before her divorce was finalized. Then came the finishing blow. Kieran's parents stepped in. Donovan Holt and his wife made a rare statement online, calling me their daughter-in-law and publicly affirming Kieran's identity as Donovan's son. They didn't need to say more. Their silent backing carried weight heavier than any scandal. No one in Hollywood would dare cross a director of Donovan Holt's stature. Public opinion flipped overnight. Julian Cross and Vivienne Hale became pariahs, criticized not just by netizens, but by colleagues within the industry. By the time Kieran and I's film was released, those 2 had vanished from the headlines, entirely reduced to cautionary tales of self-destruction. Julian still tried to reach me. I ignored him. When that failed, he resorted to threats, attempting to weaponize the past between us. But I knew better. He'd never dared take a photo with me, never saved our messages, too afraid of exposure when we were involved. His threats carried no weight. In the end, he created an anonymous account posting cryptic accusations that Kieran had come between us. But with no evidence, his words were shredded apart, mocked by the same public he once dazzled. Real or fake, you'd better shut your mouth, Julian. Being your ex is already nightmare enough. I used to be a fan, but after this, never again. He had finally lost everything, even the people who once refused to let him fall. Why did he always see himself that way? Back when Sloane was dragged through the mud for loving him, why hadn't he stepped forward to protect her? Now that she had a career, now that she had happiness of her own, he suddenly raised his voice like a bitter man choking on jealousy. He had never learned when you have something you don't cherish it, but once it's gone, you try to destroy it. Thankfully, Sloane and Kieran's love was real, or Julian would have succeeded in tearing it apart. Both Julian Cross and Vivienne Hale spiraled into a forced half-retirement from the entertainment world. One after another, their film contracts were canceled, endorsement deals dissolved, television shows erased their names from the roster. Producers came forward demanding massive compensation for damages. The once golden pair found themselves blacklisted and buried under lawsuits. And then came the final blow. Vivienne's ex-husband, Sterling Vaughn, a man the tabloids had once whispered about, as bankrupt and broken, returned stronger than ever. With the backing of powerful allies, he rebuilt his empire and reclaimed his seat in the industry. His first act was revenge. He publicly exposed Vivienne's betrayals, the deceit she had woven behind closed doors. Soon after she vanished from the entertainment world entirely. Julian tried to hold on, but the wave was too strong. His name, once adored, became a punchline. Within months, he announced his withdrawal from the industry, ending his career in humiliation. A few months later, an invitation arrived, an offer to become the new brand ambassador for Sterling Vaughn's company. When I met him for tea to discuss the contract, he looked across the table with a calm smile. "Don't worry, Ms. Mercer," he said. "I genuinely want this collaboration. Vivienne and Julian, they're in my hands now. If you'd like your own revenge, I can take you to them." I shook my head, smiling faintly. "Mr. Vaughn, what you choose to do with them is your business. For me, they ceased to exist the day Julian abandoned me. I don't want to see them, and I certainly don't care to hear about them again." After signing the contract, Kieran came to pick me up. He pulled up in a sleek SUV worth millions, instantly drawing the attention of paparazzi camped outside the building. Flashbulbs erupted as I slid into the passenger seat beside him. He grinned playfully, teasing in that light-hearted way of his. "Sloane, let's go home and recharge." I laughed out loud. "Recharge? We already did that before we left the house." He shrugged, still smiling. "So what, real couples recharge all the time? That's nothing strange." I couldn't stop the laughter bubbling up. The truth was, he was the one addicted to closeness, not me. As the car rolled away in the shadows of Sterling Vaughn's skyscraper, a broken figure stood watching Julian Cross. His body bore the weight of failure, his eyes hollow, his clothes wrinkled as if they hadn't been changed in days. He watched the SUV disappear into the distance, and tears welled despite himself. Maybe he wondered if I hadn't betrayed her, if I hadn't tried to ruin her, would the ending have been different? But life has no medicine for regret. He had destroyed his own chance forever. As for me, the sun was shining that day, warm and golden. Beside me was a man full of life, passion, and unwavering love. With Kieran's hand in mine, I knew we were walking toward a future built not on lies or betrayal, but on sincerity, trust, and the kind of love that only grows stronger with time.